Discover the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast, hosted by Tiffany, Benitez, and Jordan Franklin. Here, the complexities of being a woman in the tech industry are unraveled through discussions on key issues, personal growth, and how to succeed despite systematic challenges. It's a source of empowerment and inspiration for all women at all stages of their tech careers. We are super excited to be here with you today. And as usual, we have a phenomenal guest lined up for you. We have Sapna Ramachandran here today, and I am super excited to share her with you guys. Some of you may know her, but I will tell you, legit, she is my soul sister. I won't go into all the details, but she is amazing. She is the Vice President of Talent Experience and Culture at Kitestring Technical Services. She is a transformational leader. She has 14 years of multinational professional experience in talent and acquisition, and it's turning technical recruiting teams into success stories. So we talk a lot about what is tech, what is not tech, how many people are in sales that or recruiting that don't think that they are tech, and she is a fabulous example of tech living this in and out. In her career, Sapna has built a reputation for operation excellence. She's worked with some of the highest level of integrity and deep, passionate, I can definitely echo that, commitment towards company goals, which includes creating diverse and inclusive cultures. So DE&I is her thing. She is great at it, and she authentically loves people. Sapna has lived here in Northwest Arkansas, for those of you that are local, for around 10 years, and she loves the diversity and culture of Northwest Arkansas. She's passionate about volunteering, one of my favorite things about her, and making a difference in the community. She serves on several boards, the Greater Bentonville Chamber of Commerce, NWA Tech Fest, and RAVE, did I pronounce that right? Cultural Foundation. Right. Yes. Mm-hmm. And she also serves as an executive committee member of the NWA Tech Summit and Plan Bentonville Steering Committee. So she is phenomenal, extremely plugged into our community, and devoted to really making a difference in not only our area, but in all of the surrounding areas as well. She's also honored with the Best Employee of the Year Award in NWA for small business in 2022. So just the essence of who she is, really believes that the community growth is about building that grassroots support, and that this is the basis for strong economic and cultural development. So welcome to our show, Sapna.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jordan. There's just one more addition, a new feather on the cap, which is I'm also on the board of another cultural organization called Kannada Sangha. It is a Northwest Arkansas based one. And if I don't say that, they're going to be upset. So,
I'm glad you said it.
Say it.
Yes. Well, I always like to start off our podcast with kind of asking, what does authenticity mean to you? The purpose of our podcast is really to dig in deep, talk about topics that nobody really talks about for women in technology, and bring awareness to those topics. And we love to kick off the podcast with, what does authenticity mean to you?
Sure. Yeah, it's one of my favorite topics to talk about, being authentic. And I believe that it took me a while, but I feel like I'm really my authentic self now. So first thing is just being true to yourself, right? Being true to your values. Be it on tech, you might be doing so many innovative projects, or making some very important decisions, taking some very important actions, whatever that might be. Stay true to your values. Know that what you're doing is right. Be confident about that. Also, for me, what has really worked is just embracing my uniqueness, right? And I think that is a very powerful tool in a male-dominated tech industry, right? Especially when women can own up their uniqueness. And I struggled with it. For the longest time, I thought being different was a weakness, and I always tried really hard to fit in. But after some point, right, when you meet great people, great, strong women, when you go through a lot of exposure and experience, you have an aha moment where you're like, wait, my uniqueness is my strength, and I'm going to embrace it, right? And that's exactly what I did, because I honestly feel like what I bring, not just because I look different, but because I think different. My ideas, the value I bring to a table is very different because my background is different. My experiences and my thought process is very different, right? So just embracing who you are, and you don't have to be different. You just have to be who you are and embrace it fully, right? Another thing for me is transparency. It's big. and for women to foster trust and credibility among your male allies, I think it's very important for women in tech to be very transparent. If you are seeing sexism, gender bias, discrimination, speak up. If you are sinking and don't have work-life balance, speak up. If your leaders are having unrealistic expectations of you, speak up. But at the same time, if you're seeing something that's happening great around you, also speak up, right?
Yes.
You don't have to speak up only when things go wrong. You can speak up when things are going fine too. Just that transparency, right?
No, absolutely. And I think one of the things that you said is like when you're floundering, right? You definitely have to speak up, because some of us try to push through that, right? And that floundering is where you make mistakes, or you look like you're making mistakes, but you're not trying to. But if you don't recognize what's happening and speak up about it, then nobody's going to know what's going on.
Yeah, I think authenticity is really that fine balance, right, between being vulnerable and being confident. There is no harm in saying, hey, I'm sinking, I need help, or oops, I missed this important detail in this presentation. I'm human. There's no harm in that. But at the same time, be super confident when you know you're doing something right. So it's just that.
I love that, being vulnerable and being confident. Like there is a fine line there, right? Like we define that with guys as being cocky or confident, right?
Right.
But also confidence, you have to have some sort of vulnerability in order to be like, hey, this is how I got there. I love that statement.
Yeah.
Find that fine line.
Yeah. And when men are vulnerable, nobody gives it a second thought, No. They're like, oh, they just need, motivation or inspiration or whatever they might think of it as. But when women do it, they feel like, oh, it's a sign of weakness, which is not true.
No, but with men, it's like, oh, it's so cute.
Yeah. I think you talked about something else that was super powerful. And it's about when you have the difference of different race, different ethnicity, different gender sitting at your table, the more powerful your table is. And I think that's something that sometimes companies don't quite understand, our male allies don't understand. Like us humans, we gravitate towards what is like us. It's not natural to actually gravitate towards something that's not like us. But that's where we have to be intentional about making sure that we have the diversity at our table. So whatever it is we're doing or operating in, whether it's inside of work, outside of work, we end up with the strongest teams to do so. And I will tell you, I know I laughed and kind of talked about the fact that you're my soul sister, but I will never forget the first time that we had coffee. And it was like, you meet people and you're like, okay, that's my people. And what this is about, and the reason that I felt that draw towards you is not just because like, oh, I think you're great and you're my people. I listened to your story. I listened to the power and the perseverance that you have walked through and gone through to get to where you are today. And a lot of that is where my heart felt very drawn, because I think we're in a world now where perseverance is actually not really like hand clapped, and it's not even about the clap, right? But it is about acknowledging, like, I have been to hell and back and I smell like smoke, but I made it, right? And I think that is like really, really powerful. And that is what, like, your story, your personal story, your experience, like perseverance is a theme of what I heard when I very first talked to you, which is like our first intro. But I'd like to know how that perseverance has really played a significant role in your tech journey, but in your journey overall, because I need women to understand that, like, you need this. And if you don't have it, connect yourself to someone that understands it and is doing it well so you can do that. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. So I'd like to give you a little context before I say this. So understanding tech comes very naturally to me. I might not be the most tech savvy person, or I might not be a coder, but I'm easily able to grasp what a software development lifecycle might be, or what is IT infrastructure or cybersecurity, or how the other software tech adjacent roles fit in, so it just comes naturally to me. But at the same time, from a very long time, I knew that whatever my career might be, it has to do with people. It has to be people people-centric. And that's how I landed in tech recruiting, tech talent acquisition. So for me, my tech journey, if I have to break it down, I will say three main things really stand out to me. And I'll tell you the challenge, and then I'll tell you how perseverance played into it. Okay. So first is communication was the biggest challenge for me in corporate America. It was very often that I would be misunderstood. I was trying to convey something, but the way it was perceived or understood was something else, And I think the most crucial barrier to cross-cultural communication is language, and English is not my first language. So, these things happen. And with that, when you are not able to communicate properly, with that comes prejudices, stereotype, thinking you're not good enough, and all of those things. So I remember in my first corporate America job, when I would drive back home, most days from work, tears would roll down my face, but that didn't stop me. That's where the perseverance comes in, right? That did not stop me from waking up next morning, being equally gung-ho and motivated to get to work and start a new day, right? So that's what kept me going all this while. That's the first thing. Secondly, I always knew what my long-term goal was, and I focused on it. I always knew I wanted to be in a leadership role. And it is simply because I was confident in my leadership qualities, and I started demonstrating it, right? I started genuinely showing interest in people, and like you said, turning teams into success stories, right? So genuinely interested in growth and development of people, demonstrating more organizational dynamics and all of that. And that is perseverance, showing that you're capable of doing something to achieve your goal, right? So that's what ended up, making me succeed and put me in a leadership role today. And the third thing, which is the most important to me, is maintaining that energy and momentum. When you've been doing something for 14, 15 years, how do you stay consistent, relevant, energetic, and efficient at the same time? You cannot do that. You're not a bot, right? So, dealing with that. If somebody looked at me from outside, there are so many things that might not be in my favor. I'm a woman of color. I've had a 5-year gap in my career. And then I am an Asian woman leader. And usually there is a stereotype that Asian women are submissive, and they're often overlooked to be in leadership roles. And also on the personal front, I am an Asian woman. I'm expected to cater to certain family responsibilities. And if I don't do that, questions will be asked by, concerned elders in the family. So just, to balance all that, how do you do all that? You just need to be perseverant, right? In this case, when I say perseverance, I really mean taking care of yourself. Your mind, your body is sacred. It is your temple. You have to take care of your mind and body. And of late, I have started feeling zero guilt when I'm taking me time, or when I'm sitting on the couch and my husband's cooking, or, I don't feel guilty because I know that me time, that recharge is important for me to get back and be efficient next morning, right? So that's how I kind of persevere. I don't persevere throughout my tech journey.
Well, and I think you made a really good point, right? Like, I mean, you made fantastic points all the way through with perseverance and everything like that. But I think women need to know, right, that they need to take me time. That's just as important as, speaking out, standing up for yourself, those kind of things. But taking me time is so important that a lot of us pack our days really, really full and stay really busy.
Yeah.
And then we don't take any time for ourselves. But if we're not taking any time for ourselves, then how are we supplying to others, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, I think that was a great point that you made, because a lot of our questions revolve around perseverance and resilience. But I think in order to do that, you have to take care of your mind, body, and soul first.
Yeah.
And then you are stronger to persevere, right?
Yeah.
I would ask, and if you have a good example, what would be one of the barriers that you've encountered over your tech journey? Be it gender bias, be it just a barrier. What would that have been? I feel like we've touched on it a little bit, but really want to kind of push on that?
Sure. And I'd like to speak for myself, but mostly I'd like to speak in general what I have seen throughout my experience for women in tech. So, of course, gender bias is there. It's not only in hiring, promotions, or recognition, it is there even in every single meeting. There's heap eating, there is, people don't even listen to what you have to say sometimes, even though you're saying, you're talking something of substance. So that is constantly there. Women face that all the time. But there are 3-4 things that I want to touch on real quick. One is really the lack of representation. There are very, very, very few women leaders in tech that you can look up to. And like I said, Asian women leaders are not even given a chance in most cases. Very, very low percentage of Asian women leaders on top in tech. And this is what Tiffany talks always about, right? The 28%, which might have fallen lower now, but I don't know. The 28% of women in tech, if you look at how many diverse women are there in that 28%, it's just less than 10%. There are only 5% of Asian women in tech. There are 3% of Black women in tech. And there's less than 1% of Hispanic women in tech. And
Yes.
it just blows my mind. It's insane. And especially when there is so much demand for tech jobs, even at grassroots levels, like if you look at all the students that take up AP computer science classes, of all the students, only 4% are female students. And in that 4%, only 2% are Black students and less than 1% are Native American female students. So I really think tech companies like Kitestring, I think both of you know this, recently went to Siloam Springs High School, talked about, how can you pursue IT as a career and as education? You don't have to code. You still can be an IT professional. Demystifying and giving them clarity is what they really need. And more tech companies have to do that. That's perseverance. And secondly, I think with women in tech, there is different time zones. You have to have offshore teams, onshore teams, and men counterparts really think that women cannot do that. They just assume that after work hours, they cannot be on a call, they cannot do international travel because they have personal commitments. And I think even after the pandemic, with hybrid schooling and virtual schooling, women have had to bear the brunt of a lot of supervision of kids at home. So 27% of women in IT have quit their jobs to take care of their family, as versus to only 10% of men in IT. So it's just a lot of all that makes women's career, stagnate or not grow. That's unequal opportunities, right? Like men are always given the first priority for promotions or salary increases, whereas women, and there's always second thoughts. What if she gets pregnant? What if she gets married? Or what if she has a child to take care of, or even an elderly parent or whatever that might be, right? Women always fall at that. Last thing I'll really quickly touch on is imposter syndrome. It's my favorite topic. I always talk about it. I'm very vocal about it. And I really, really think that is the pink elephant in the room that most women push under the rug, which should be talked about. So these are some of the obstacles that I think women face in tech.
Yeah, I think that you hit on a lot of really, really important points, but I think one of my most passionate pieces is that many reasons that the numbers are low. So you just actually talked about several of them, but the gap in work history is huge. So we as women have the babies, and so we leave to help take care of the babies, or we have sick parents. And just typically since the beginning of time, let's just be real, right? We have the nurturing role. We are the caretakers. And so what happens is we leave to do those things and we try to come back. And you guys both work for tech staffing firms. So you know how it goes. In traditional companies, the resume is scanned, right? We've moved to automation. It is scanned. And when it sees that there is a gap, there is no longer a human there to say, hey, what was the gap? Oh, okay, you left to have a baby. Cool. You're not discounted. But
let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, Women in Technology of Northwest Arkansas and Gumption at my-gumption.com for their support. Their contributions are critical in bringing these meaningful conversations to you. Stick around for more engaging discussions right after this break.
Many resumes no longer make it even to hiring managers because of the gap. And this is a huge problem. We have a lot of talent and skill set, and companies are starting to recognize it. Like Walmart, Lowe's, like they all have programs that are called back to work programs for women. And so it specifically targets women that have been out of the workplace, that are trying to come back in, that have had a gap, and they reserve a certain headcount to actually do that. And this is a beautiful thing. However, like, why do we have to create a program to do that? I understand automation, but there needs to be something in place. Otherwise, we're never going to continue to grow in our numbers. And I would say there is some huge pieces that we own with regards to trying to create programs that allow an entryway back into. And again, you both work for companies that focus on hiring and bringing that back in. So I'd like to know, how can you not only use that influence with regards to your job and your career, but also take that back to a personal level? Like, we also are mentors, right? We all serve as mentors. We all give back to the community. But I think there's some power in mentorship, and not some, like a lot, that we don't talk about, even as far as like role models. Even if you don't have that formal mentorship relationship, like just how you act and serve and love on people is what makes you a role model. Your title, how much money you make is not. But there are women and girls that are seeking this out, especially with regards to returning to the workplace. So how do you, Sapna, like view mentorship, role model, that side of it, which is more the personal side, on bringing women back into the workforce, and then also from a professional side, with especially targeting that gap in work history? How do you do that?
Sure. I think for me, I'm a mentor myself, so it's very important for me to be inclusive and empathetic, and that's my leadership style. That's what I practice even when I'm mentoring people. But I really feel like it cannot be one style, right? Like you cannot, like every mentee is so different. Every mentee's needs are so different. So I cannot have one size that fits all. I cannot think that, okay, A might consume what I'm giving, the information I'm giving, the same way as B might consume it. They're very different. So understanding your mentee, what are they wanting, is equally important for a mentor as much as it is for a mentee to know how your mentor can be helpful to you. And you rightly said, Tiffany, that it doesn't have to be structured, right? Mentorship, there are a lot of companies that promote structured mentorship, sponsorship, and championship, which is great. That should be the case. But there can be very unstructured, organic, and natural mentorship that can happen. Like, for example, in my case, my boss, Jared Smith, has always been my unstructured, organically happen mentor, right? Because he's providing me with the guidance, with the support, and always showing you the right track, or nudging you and pushing you to do the right thing. So I owe a lot of what I am today to him, really. But at the same time, when a mentee is seeking out to be in a structured mentor-mentee relationship, you want to totally take advantage of it. You don't want to just do it because somebody asked you to do it, or only for career advancements. You want to do it and totally take advantage in terms of use their networks. Grow, make their networks your networks. Also learn from their mistakes. If they have made mistakes and failed, don't make the same mistakes again. Learn from it. So it's a shortcut for you. You can move faster because you're not making the same mistakes again. Learn from those things. And it really boosts your confidence to know that somebody is vesting in you. Somebody's investing their time and effort in spending and telling you what is the right thing to do. And that's amazing. So that really makes you feel like, I am worth it. There's something about me that this senior person is giving me time, right? But also, one thing that's not talked about in mentorship is really, if this person is not right for you, don't put up with it. Just be honest. Don't waste their time or your time. Tell them that my style, maybe you're too aggressive for me. Maybe you're too passive for me. I want to grow faster, or I want to go slower, whatever that might be. Just talk it out. If it doesn't work, then just move on. Don't just waste each other's time.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, is not wasting each other's time. If it's not working out for you, step back and say, hey, this is not working out for me. And really own that, because that's a huge thing. We're coming kind of close to the end of our 30 minutes. I know it's been great, but I kind of wanted to ask you, what is one piece of advice that you could leave for our listeners, but also what is a legacy that you hope to leave for women in technology?
Sure. I'll touch on the legacy part first because I have thought a lot about it, and I've always been thinking a lot about it because you're not permanent here. You got to go someday. And what is it that you want people to remember you for, right? So for me personally, I want to be representing all immigrant women like me. And Tiffany touched on this. Immigrant women do a lot. They leave everything they love, their country, their family, their friends, their careers, and come here after losing their identity or after having a confused identity. And then they get into the groove of inability to work on a visa, without a visa, childbirth, child rearing, gap in confidence is shattered, all of that. And then I came out of it with perseverance and authenticity, but not a lot of them know how to do that. You're just in an identity crisis situation. To be a voice, I want my voice to be all of our voices. And even when I'm gone, I really want people to remember me and think that if she could do it, I can represent women too, and being that. And I really think legacy for me is all about making somebody feel to know their true worth by, even in the smallest way possible. Quick, I know we're running out of time. Really quick story here. I had an accident 8 years ago and I had to go to the chiropractor. So while I was waiting to be called in at the chiropractor's place, I met this elderly gentleman who had a broken back, and he said he was trying to load shelves, and while doing his job, he broke his back and he was there. And then a few days later, I talked to him, fixed his resume, helped him with the interviews, and then he got a job in the company I was working for as a kind of tech support kind of a role. And although he had the technical aptitude, he was loading shelves because he didn't know how to crack an interview. And even now, to this day, after so many years, every Christmas, he sends me his blessings and he sends me his wishes. And those are the small things that I call legacy and I want to leave for everybody else. So what was your next question, Jordan?
I love that. I love that. So both of us being in staffing, I'm the same way. Like, you changed someone's life and all you did was get them a job or help them with something. Like, I say it as all you did, like, because that's our daily job, but it's so fun when they come back and they're so thankful for it. Or you work with someone for years and years and years and find the perfect match.
Yeah, you might just think you're doing your job, but to them, it's a whole world of difference.
It's a whole
matters.
It matters so much. It matters so much. And I feel like I kind of take our jobs for granted, Sapna, because I love it so much. And then I just think, oh, this is what I do. Like, I can help, and then you see how much it matters, and it's so rewarding. But I tell everyone, nobody wakes up when they're 5 and says, I want to be a recruiter. Like, that's just not a thing. Yeah. Right. But it is so rewarding. The other question I had was, what is like one little nugget of advice for our viewers that you would leave them with?
Sure. There is a Buddhist saying that says, what you think you become, what you feel you attract, and what you imagine you create. So I really want to say that authenticity is not something that will happen overnight. You got to be a little more authentic today than you were yesterday. You got to be a little more authentic tomorrow than you were today. So it's just that you're sharing a little bit of the real you, a real self of who you are with the world. So you become stronger for the world, So keep at it, keep persevering at it, upskill yourself. Knowledge is power. Always stay on the know-how. These things will take you a long way. So yeah, that's all I had for them.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. I'll tell you, not only did I we talk a lot, but not only did I get some additional insight today, but it's really exciting to hear from women that have made it through. I think we're always on this side of things. It's a journey, right? So there's never really any make it, no matter what your title is. We're all just on this journey together. But what's important is that we come together, that we lock arms. So did you hear that? Together? So not divide, but we come together and we realize the strength that happens when we come together. There's power in that. And so I'm just grateful for your time. I know your schedule is really busy, but thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for sharing with the entire world. We just really appreciate your time. And listeners, we are extremely grateful for you all. We hope that the content that we're delivering, the speakers that we're bringing, the conversations that we're having, we're hoping that you are starting to feel empowered. We're hoping that you are getting some freedom to really operate in that full, authentic, whatever that looks like for you, who you are and how you feel like you should be doing it. So we're just excited and grateful for each and every one of you. Please continue to follow and subscribe and tune in. And thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Okay, so we just wrapped up our episode, and I'm going to be honest with you. We went into a conversation that we could not let slip from this episode, but we had a conversation. I think when we talk about authenticity, that there is a piece that keeps us, there are many pieces, but I feel like one of the biggest pieces that keep us from being authentic is our focus on the way that we look and what society has determined is beautiful or acceptable or okay or enough. And I think that there is a lot of focus on how we look, but that would be okay, I guess, if it wasn't taking away from our authenticity. And since we are here addressing authenticity, and that's the topic, Sapna, I want to know like what your thoughts are. Like, have you experienced this? Do you know other people or stories that are really powerful on this? And what is your advice on that?
Sure. I think authenticity is not just about how you feel or how you open up. I think authenticity is also feeling comfortable in your skin, literally, right? Like just not putting so much pressure on yourself to have if you're a Black woman, feeling confident, even if your hair is not done, or if you haven't threaded your face, or if you haven't waxed your legs, whatever that might be. I mean, grooming is great. It's very important for self-confidence. And it's also important for the way you present yourself and give an impression to others, but that it should not be your identity. That should not be, if for some reason, if I have a bad hair day or if I don't put on makeup a certain day, I should feel the same level of confidence on a makeup day or a no makeup day. I should still be myself. I should be able to feel and love my inner beauty as much as I feel confident with my outer beauty. And that is what women in tech should be doing. And there are a lot of women in tech who have to present data or presentations or code over calls or even in person, in front of a room full of men. It can be very intimidating because they might feel like, oh, I am wearing Indian clothes, or I'm not wearing a blazer like my white female counterpart, or whatever that might be, just to feel inferior just because of the way you look. And that's the worst mistake women in tech can do. I think you should understand your self-worth and your beauty. And it doesn't have to be by anybody's standards. It doesn't have to be a 36, 24, 36 standards. It is just your natural self, your authentic self. And that's super important.
No, and I have to say, we were talking about this and I told you that my mother watched our podcasts and she was like, you went from full makeup to no makeup to a hat and a hoodie. But that's exactly it, right? Like being confident that you are in the place that you're supposed to be in, no matter what you have on. Like it doesn't matter, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm 5'10", so naturally I'm taller than a lot of people, right? And I used to care to wear flats to my first meeting so that I wasn't too intimidating, right? And now I just don't care. Now it's just, if I want heels that day, then it's going to be heels. And I probably only own 2 pairs of flats anyway. So if you get flats on a day, that's impressive. But I think that kind of thing doesn't translate. But you know who it translates to? The next generation.
Yes.
Right? It translates so well to them that my daughter's 5'1", she's 9 years old, and she could care less that she's taller than everyone else.
Yep.
And and I love that for her because I cared. I did care. But she does not care. She wants to be 6'1". She wants to be really tall. And I love that for her because that is exactly what you just described, Sapna, being confident and authentic to your own self. And I think that's fantastic. Yeah. And I'm so happy we did a PS.
I know. This is our PS, authenticity. And we wanted to leave you with these thoughts. It's really, really important. Be comfortable in your skin. Be who you are. Rock whatever you want to wear. Stop listening to what society says is or isn't. Who cares? Be you, be all of you, be whole, like put on the red lipstick, wear the wild colors, like just stop letting everyone tell you. So that's our PS. Now we're peace.
Well, that's a wrap. Another episode of Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast. Thanks for tuning in and sharing this time with us. If you liked what you heard, please share this episode with your friends in tech. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. Your support helps us keep bringing in inspiring guests and uncovering topics that matter to you. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and making your mark in the tech world. Goodbye for now.